killing bush. I've got him at gunpoint.
They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for camp.
God!
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And we are joined by a returning guest. Chuck, who do we have with us this week?
We have Austin. Austin is a firefighter. He was on the show before, has also written to us, and we've answered a couple of his stuff on the air. But because that was due to operational securities, I don't believe we mentioned his name. I am not going to mention what we talked about.
Right. We don't want to connect the dots.
No connecting of the dots, but he's been an active listener, an active fan. He's been on before. He's written us. So he's been engaged with us, and that's who we have.
Now, Austin,
somewhere in the United States.
You were just saying you almost didn't make it today because your county decided to blow up.
Yeah, it got kind of crazy about 6:30. It's currently 7:06 where I'm at, so it got kind of crazy. I rolled back into the house at like 6:52. So,
well, you were in the waiting room when we started the meeting, so that was impressive considering, especially when your buddy. What did your buddy text you?
Yeah, he called me and he was like, "Hey, can you go handle that first call while I go handle the second one?" So,
and what were the calls?
Matter of fact, we just got another one.
We're just gonna have to go?
No. It'll be fine.
And what were the calls that you got?
We had a lift assist call, unresponsive child, and then we just got a brush fire call.
I'll take the brush fire.
All day, every day.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean,
better than the deal.
It's a toss up between the lift assist and the unresponsive 5-year-old. Like obviously the unresponsive 5-year-old sucks, but at least you can do some good. Whereas the lift assist, it's just gross.
Well, I mean, I have been a part of lift assist before where a call comes in, just, pick him up. And we get there and he starts coding on us as we try to pick him up. So,
oh man.
Oof. No, thank you. So, well, welcome back. Why don't you give our listeners a kind of a refresher on how you came to firefighting, and we can start talking about some of your other stories.
I actually became a firefighter because of my wife. One of her friends was a firefighter where I'm at now, and I started hanging out with him, and we had done something down there at the station one day, and he taught me into putting in an application, and ended up falling in love with it, and I've never looked back.
Nice.
Well, I mean, what other job can you get paid to sleep?
Well, remember, I am a volunteer, so I actually do have a quote unquote
true.
big boy job.
That's true. Job. Well, so what's funny is I've talked about this with many cops, and I don't know how many firefighters know that this is an inside joke among cops, but among police officers, we joke that firefighting is your other job.
Because they all have separate side gigs.
Have
the full-time gigs.
A full-time they're all like cabinet makers or driveway pavers,
home inspectors,
or
construction work, right. Contractors. Right. But here's the thing: we're not talking about the young bucks who come on. They're like, man, no. I'm getting screwed. And yeah, you guys are getting screwed. These are the senior dudes who have 10, 15, 20 plus years on the job because they've been able to establish themselves, do their dues, pay their time, and play the game a little bit. And then they are able to get a sweet gig where they're actually able to string together their 3 days, 24-hour shifts, on, and then they get like a week off.
And then a week off to remodel somebody's kitchen.
Exactly. When they come back and do it all over. Man, they got some big, and then they get dirty pay too. You out here in Southern California, like they'll get, it's not uncommon for them to break 200,000 in a year.
Yeah.
That's like for base fire. If you're working overtime, especially in the fire seasons, you're getting screwed, you're getting hammered.
So that's the other thing,
blackouts or whatever. For the,
when let's talk about how when you get loaned out to like a big fire in California. So maybe it's the firefighters that are behind the forest problems in California and the wildfire problems in California. Because let me tell you, when the entire state of California or the entire state of Oregon or the entire state of Washington catches fire, right? And that's let's face it, it happens quite often where you have like 2 or 3 major fires going at once during fire season. And they name these things, right? You know, the Key fire, the Garth Brooks fire, they always name them something, right?
The Placerville fire that took a lot of homes.
Well, the Holiday fire, you know, it's always like named after the town or the canyon or the someplace where it started, right? I know guys, and massive amount of respect. One of them we're gonna have on. He's my step-brother-in-law. He's my stepsister's husband. Went to the fire academy and he's now a wildland firefighter. But you get sent, you're out there 2-3 weeks, right? Like at a camp. You're away from your family. You're at a fire camp. You're fighting fire, then going back, eating, sleeping, waking up, eating, going and fighting fire, coming back, eating, sleeping, waking up, eating, going fight fire. Like it is wash, rinse, repeat until that fire is under control for weeks at a time. Yeah. And boy, do you get paid.
Well, here's the downside is, and I don't know if Austin knows about this, but
spending 3 or 4 weeks away from your family, that's the downside.
Well, yeah, but the downside is that
family.
on their time, on their when they're not like when they're not at the fire, the wildland dudes, they generally, it doesn't matter if there's a fire or not during fire season. The wildland guys will go and spend 3 months or 2 months up at a specific facility, and then they'll come back down for a month, go back up for a couple months, or however long the stretch is, because that's their duty assignment. But when they come back home, there is no other work for them to do. So that whole 2 month, regardless if there's a fire or not, that's what they're getting paid for, unless you have a full-time gig, which is very hard to get.
But so here's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the guys who have a full-time firefighting gig. And then one of these big fires hits in their area and they call for mutual aid. And then they're like, oh, well, let me go. And so then it's like their regular pay plus overtime the entire time they're there.
Yeah, I was telling my wife about that.
Oh, it's bananas. And we would loan a dispatcher to them. We would
really?
We would send a dispatcher.
Overtime, dude. She's like, hey, I'll take that
2 weeks of just, Austin, do you guys have anything like that?
No, our fires or our brush fires are nowhere near that size. I mean, I have seen brush fires where there was like in my county, I live on the west end of the county. I have seen just about all of the west end fire departments on that fire, but I've never seen like something where it was bring the whole county, bring the next county,
the whole state.
Right? Yeah. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, those are massive. Like when they bring in like 747 jumbo jets modified to freaking dump
the super scoopers from Canada,
the super scoopers, and
his wildfires are like a day, like maybe a few hours.
Right.
Our wildfires
are weeks,
that are like a week one, like that was quick, like that went down. Is a few days, like 5 days, 4 days. And then you're like, that wasn't that bad. I only burned a few thousand acres, right? And then the really bad ones go on for like a month or a full week or 2 weeks. And then they're burning thousands upon thousands upon thousands of acres.
So Austin, what's the longest you have worked a fire for?
All night. We had a storage unit fire, and that was the longest I've ever worked one.
Ooh, and you've never had to go to a fire camp and work like multiple days or anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. That's like, you talk about like the Creek fire, you talk like the Dixie fire. These are some of the largest wildfires in California history. And you're talking about, let's see, I'm looking for
what acreage. About that one that went through Montana and Idaho and shit? That was like a month of fire. It was like 2 years ago.
I don't know.
Dude, it was a long one. It was like a month of full like firefighting. It went through like I want to say like Montana, Wyoming, like through the mountains where you couldn't get to it. Like if they're just trying to burn it out, like it just, yeah, like it was so fast and so big and so hot. It took them like a month or so to get it down.
There was the Dixie Fire, but that was in California.
No, this was all out of state.
That was 963,309 acres. I mean, that's a lot. They were fighting the fire. Let's see, July 13th, 2021. And that's when it started. And it was 100% declared 100% contained on October 25th, 2021. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was and that's not even the largest one. The largest one was the August complex fire, 1,032,648 acres. It ignited from lightning strikes on August 16th through 17th. And then I guess it was 4 fires that combined that into the main fire and became the single largest wildfire in California's recorded history. And it was, let's see, 100% contained. When does it say? Oh, actually, it's not that long. It was not that long. It was August 16th to November 12th compared to the other one. But that's still a long time. Yeah.
Austin, what are yours like? Like if you have like a brush fire or something like that, can you guys contain it pretty quick? Or is it like if you don't contain it with like in so many minutes or an hour, it's kind of going to just run?
It depends on where it's at. The first call I ever run is a truck where I was actually able to drive a truck there. If we would have been like another 2 minutes, it would have taken off into dead kudzu and we probably would have had to call forestry in. But the longest one that I've ever worked was maybe a couple of hours, if that.
Oh shit. Okay. Dang.
So I mean, is this like totally foreign to you to like there's nothing like that in your area? Is it just the terrain doesn't allow for it and you guys can get things under control easily? Is there not a lot of brush?
There's a lot of brush. I mean, at the very west end of our county, we've actually had a brush fire where they were there all day and all night, I believe. So a day or two fighting it. But in my area, if we get paged for a brush fire, it's usually within an hour we're packed up and gone.
Wow. You know, like I lived in North Carolina for a little bit, and right outside the main gate of the base, there was a truck that caught on fire, right? And in California, you got to get that shit under control real fucking quick, because if you don't, it's going to run wild. It's going to start catching the hillsides on fire. Next thing you know, you have a massive wildfire on your hands. Well, I was surprised when they were just like, well, we can hit it with water. We're going to hit it with water, but we're just kind of going to let it burn out. And it was right next to the forest, which was all green, and it just burned. It didn't catch anything on fire. I mean, it scorched the trees and fucked the trees up right there. But I was surprised in how long they just let it burn for.
Yeah.
Because it was just so dense and humid and green and moisture that they could do that because it wasn't going to catch anything on fire.
We have the largest active wildfire in the US right now in Idaho.
Really?
Yeah. 95,000 acres, the Moose Fire. So what are your most common fires that you get, Austin?
Well, I mean, you get a lot of, mainly it just also depends on the time of the year. I mean, in the early spring, kind of start of summer, we'll run a bunch of brush fires. But I would say most of ours usually are structures.
Okay. And do you get them, like, are your structures pretty well spread out, or do you have a lot of like housing tracts where, you know, if a fire rips through the area, it can take out, 10, 20 homes at a time?
They're spread out. I mean, we have a bunch of, I know in my jurisdiction, we have a bunch of apartment complexes, but everything's kind of spaced out enough. I mean, usually when a call comes in, like a structure fire call comes in, we're there within anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, and we can usually get everything under control before it gets worse.
So a lot of what you guys are doing then, besides that, is, like you said, the medical aids, the lift assists, the public assists, the those kinds of things. Does that take up probably the largest percentage of your time?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact number, but it was 3 years ago, I believe. We run 600 something calls, and 95% of them were medicals.
95% medical.
90.
Oh.
I can't remember if it was 90 or 95, but I mean, it was for 100 medical calls, it was like a wreck or a fire or something.
Oh man. See, this is why, like, I get that firefighting, like, okay, yeah, you get paid to sleep, but I don't know if I want to deal with 95% medical aids. I honestly, I just don't like dealing with medical stuff. I just don't like it.
I can do that.
I mean, it sucks, don't get me wrong, but since the last time we spoke, I've actually went through EMT class, and
oh, how was that?
It was rough because the way that it worked out, class was Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And because of my work schedule, I ended up having to work 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. And when I left work, I'd go straight to class. And for 9 weeks, it was rough. But at the end of it, like I told my instructors, like, y'all really opened my eyes for medical stuff. Because I just want to be firefighter. I don't want to do like the medicals and everything. And my whole sole purpose of going through EMT was just for the sheer fact of, hey, look at me, I'm a little bit better than the next guy because I've already got my EMT license.
And because you're trying to get on full time and get paid, obviously.
Sir, that's the dream.
Right. Yeah. And in your area, how those positions, I'm assuming, don't come open very often because there's not a glut of paid positions. It's a lot of volunteer positions. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the city closest to me right now, I mean, they have a hiring thing like every 6 months or so. It just because there's a lot of people that come in and then they transfer out or they're retiring, and I mean, when people retire or transfer out, that opens spots or people get promoted, so they have to bring in new guys.
Right. Well, good luck on getting that. Tell me about, because I had to go through a recertification for medical stuff, and it's one of those things where, like, I really try not to be myself
yeah
in those contexts, because if I am myself, I will make a lot of inappropriate comments and laugh, and my gallows humor will come out in its fullest form. And usually if you got a pretty good instructor, they know your background, they get it. But some of the guys, and I think the guy that I took this class from was one of those guys that was going to be very very serious and not appreciative of the gallows humor. So how was yours? How long was the program? Obviously you couldn't go like full time every day. You had to go at night, right? When you're off duty and when you're off your day job. So how long did it take you total?
I was on a fast track program, so it took me 9 weeks.
Oh, okay.
9 weeks. We went. See, class didn't actually start till technically 6, but you could get down there. They opened the doors at 5, so 90% of us were already there at like a little after 5, just to study and get ready. And I mean, my instructors, they were awesome. I mean, I told them at the very end of the class, like, y'all taught this dumb old country boy something. I mean, because they were serious, but at the same time, they tried to make it to where you could actually grasp everything. And there was a lot of hands-on, making sure that you understood everything.
Was there a lot of other firefighter hoplicants? I guess it'd be not applicants necessarily, but guys that were there trying to better themselves to become firefighters, or was it a lot of career guys? What did you guys have?
I believe we started out with 35 students, and by like the second week there was like 26 of us left.
Oh, you had that much attrition?
Oh, they told us the first, like, because we went down, it's 48 minutes from where I live to where that class was.
Okay.
So that first night we went down there and was, it was basically like just to see who's interested in it. They told us that night, we only can hold so many people. So, if you're not serious about this, then let somebody else take it. And I think out of everybody that was left, there was 6 of us that were firefighters. But really and truly, I was the only one that was doing it at that moment, just for the sheer fact of trying to go full-time firefighting.
So were a lot of the other firefighters like already paid full-time, and so they were
they volunteers?
Just needed their EMT, or were they?
Most of them were just volunteer firefighters. Have you ever heard of a rescue squad, where it's like, instead of having a like a private ambulance service or a city ambulance service, the rescue squad handles all the medical stuff for like a town, city, whatever.
Is it associated with the fire department?
No, they are strictly just EMS, but
so
it's
like
all
a
volunteer.
Public ambulance service.
Yes. I mean, I think you do get paid. I think you do get paid kind of, but it's mainly volunteer. You go in and it's just like working for an EMS company. You have assigned shifts, 12-hour shifts, 24-hour shifts, whatever you want to work. And you come in and you're basically a half paid in, like, you have all the certifications, you're just not working for a private based EMS service. And there was a bunch of people from the rescue squad in that class.
Yeah. So would you recommend to volunteer firefighters? Would you recommend them going through? Did you feel like you got something out of it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you have the opportunity, I got extremely lucky. EMT classes can be anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 for books, tuition, uniforms, drug screening, background checks.
Sorry, uniforms?
Yes, when you're an EMT student, because you have to do clinicals, you have to actually play the part. You can't roll in there with a cut off shirt and blue jeans and boots and be fine.
Well, no, I thought there might be a dress code, but I'm kind of surprised that you have to have like your own uniform.
And that's the whole time, the full 9 weeks?
No, you only had to wear the uniforms when you did your clinicals.
Oh, that's like going into a hospital or whatever and working in the ER?
Yes, sir. Like working on the ambulance and working in the hospital. Because we had to do 12 hours on the ambulance and I believe it was 16 hours in the hospital.
So what sorts of things did you get from EMT school let's go with this. What sorts of things surprised you that you got from EMT school? Because we're doing this because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there we get people all the time asking us, about how do they get into police work? How do they get into firefighting? And, getting your education is one of the things we always tell people, putting yourself through the academy or getting your certification for first aid, CPR, EMT, all those kinds of things will help. So what were you surprised by in this?
I mean, I was surprised. I'd been a firefighter for 3 or 4 years. And when it come to medical stuff, I just kind of like threw my hands up, like, they can handle it, screw it. I don't need to worry about it. And once I went through everything and like I actually understood why we did things the way we did them, it blew my mind. And like, believe it or not, simple stuff like, I'm trying to think. I can't think. But just, everything kind of blew my mind, just to be honest with you. Because I really didn't know anything about medicals.
So what would you do on medicals prior to getting your EMT?
You want me to tell you the truth? You want me to lie to you?
No,
I would stand in the corner with a clipboard, write down information.
Perfect.
Now, if it was, like CPR needed to be initiated or something like that, because I did have my CPR start through American Heart Health or whatever it is, and I would do that. But I mean, really and truly, I was just trying to buy time until EMS got there.
Right. So from your experiences that you've had since we last spoke, I'm guessing you've got some more stuff you want to share about some of the things you've seen, not just EMT school, but what are some of the more recent things that you've had occur and that you kind of are experiencing on your journey to becoming full time?
Well, not long after I talked to y'all, I broke my right hand. Like literally the week after we recorded the episode, I broke my right hand.
Oh wow, that's nice.
Yeah,
I hope it wasn't our fault.
No. And then I caught COVID, and then when I got back from COVID, I experienced my first flashover in a house fire.
Okay.
That was awesome, but also nerve wracking because I was actually inside the house and they started screaming, "Get out!" And I hadn't made it 4 steps off the front porch when it flashed. And then the story that I want to tell today, that one had me messed up for a while.
Well, go ahead.
On May 8th, which Mother's Day, started out like any other day. My wife wanted to go to church, so we went to church with her parents. And when we got out of church, we went to my grandparents. And I left my pager in the truck, and we get like text pages on our phones. And I was trying to get, like, I was trying to leave my grandparents, and my phone went off, and I looked down and it just said structure fire. And when it comes to like holidays like that, it's kind of up in the air if you're going to have anybody or not, especially in the volunteer world. I mean, it can be worse than normal. And I took off to the station, told my wife I loved her, and I let her drive my truck to her parents, and I jumped in the tanker, and we took off, and we were about 5 minutes away when the guy that set up command for the fire, he'd went over the radio and he said, "All incoming units, be advised, there's 2 possibly entrapped. I need an interior team as soon as y'all get here." And I went back over the radio and told them that we were, at this point, like 3 minutes away, and I would be ready to roll because I had all my gear on except for my air pack. So when we pulled up, and let me backtrack for just a second.
Sure.
I've been a firefighter for a while now, and you still get butterflies when you go into a fire and everything. But that day was the first time that I'd ever looked at my driver, who's one of my good friends, and told him I loved him. Because you know how you just get that sick feeling in your stomach?
Yeah. Like this one's different.
Yeah. And I turned and I looked at him. I said, I love you. If something happens, take care of my family. And we pull up, I check in with command, and he tells me to get with a guy at the front, like at the front of the house. And I walk up to him, and I grew up with him. I know him really well. And we're standing there talking, and the whole front of this house just looks like, it looked like the pits of hell. And me and Jeremy are sitting there talking, or standing there trying to figure out how we're going to do this. And a guy comes around from the Bravo side of the house, which was to our left, and says, "There's a door on the side of the house. We could go in from there." And we, kind of move a purpose down to look at it. And for some reason, and I still replay this in my head, we walked back to the front for some reason. And then we walked back to the side of the house and started to push in.
Mm-hmm.
And we opened the door, and we're immediately hit with just pure black smoke. It was a 2-story house. The whole second floor is blazing. And come to find out, it did have a full basement too. But we push in this room, and we can't, I mean, I can barely see the reflective on the back of his jacket. And
Ooh. How far ahead of you?
I mean,
how far ahead of you is he?
He wasn't more than, I mean, he was nothing more than an arm's length.
Ooh.
And he turns around and yells at me to get a tick, because we had a guy at the door who was keeping contact with me while I'm, that way he knows what we're doing and how we're doing it. And they hand us a tick, we turn it on, which a tick is thermal imaging camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's just pure black. We can't see nothing. I mean, go figure, it's hotter than hell.
Yeah, the tick's like, it's hot.
Yeah, and the screen's just pure black. And we search that room. We start to come out of that room, and when we get to the doorway of the room that we're pushing out of, I know there's a door in front of me. There's something to my left, and there is a room to my right. And come to find out, there was a room on my left doorway. There was a room in front of us, and there was it turned out to be a bathroom / like washer and dryer area.
Sure, like a laundry room.
Yeah, but I mean, it actually had like a tub in it and a toilet and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, against my better judgment, he looked at me, or he turned to me, because we're almost face mask to face mask, just that way we could see each other. He said, "I'm gonna search this room real quick. You stay here." And okay. And I'm trying to listen for him. I've got the guy at the door trying to yell at me, trying to keep in contact with us, because he's telling us, your time's running out. Y'all need to get out. And
was it the bottle, the air?
No, the whole second floor, the whole second story of that house is pure blaze. And
okay.
We didn't know.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that, you never truly know how much time you got till it's over. You know.
Right.
And he goes in that room, and I lose contact with him. I can't hear him. I can't see him. And I didn't start panicking, but the way because when you get in a fire like that, you rely on your hearing more than anything. Right. Your feeling and your hearing is your best friend. And I'm trying to listen to him, and honest to God, it sounded like it was water going downstairs. And so in my mind, I guess I automatically went to, what if he just went downstairs? What if he's hurt? So I said, screw it. I'm going in after him. And I started to push in the room. And of course, I'm trying to feel, making sure I'm not fixing to go tumble downstairs or something. And I start to hear him, and he says, make noise. Well, like I told you, I had broke my right hand, and it's still kind of iffy. So I realized I had the tick in my hand, and I just started slamming it on the ground, just trying to make noise for him to hear me. That way he could come back to me. And he finally gets back to me, and I look at him, I said, dude, we got to get out of here. Guy at the door is saying we need to get out. Time's up. Let's go. And that door that was in front of us, when we pushed out of that room, it was too hot when we first come to it. And, usually if a door is hot, don't go in that room.
Right.
That could be subject to flashover, backdraft, however you want to look at it. It's a no-go.
Yeah, we all learned that is in elementary school. Touch the door. If it's hot, don't open it.
Mm-hmm. And well, for some reason, he kind of like sat on his butt and leaned, I guess, trying to take some of the pressure off his air pack. Trying to take the air packs ain't very light. And
no,
I guess he was just trying to take some weight off his shoulders. And he felt that door, and he was like, hey, it's cooler. We need to push in here real quick. We'll check this room, and then we'll get out. Okay. Well, we open that door, and the smoke's starting to clear. So now I'm starting to kind of get a visual where we are, and what we're dealing with. And like them big oversized chairs, it's basically like a recliner, but it doesn't recline. It's just massively oversized.
And like a high back chair.
Mm-hmm. There was one to our immediate left, and he goes immediate left. Once he goes in the room, and I'm at the doorway, we're on our hands and knees, and he's searching, and I'm watching him, trying to make sure, he's okay. I'm watching his body movement. And then as the smoke's starting to clear out of this room, I start to pan to my right, just trying to get a visual of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm going to my right, like if you pick your arm up, like if you got your arm at your side and you pick it up and make like the drill sergeant hand,
mm-hmm.
and point not straight up, but just to the left of like where your arm comes up, I saw the guy. He was leaning against the wall. And in my head, I thought it was a dummy. Because we train with dummies.
Right.
I mean, it didn't really register in my head, and I remember saying to myself, "That's weird. Why do they have one of those?" Oh fuck! And
right.
I just remember staring for I don't know how long I stared, or if I stared for very long, or whatever it was. But then I finally broke that. I don't know how to explain it, but I finally broke the trance, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And I started looking for Jeremy, and Jeremy was sitting on his knees, kind of almost not right in front of the guy, but he was kind of halfway between me and the guy. And
right.
I hear Jeremy kind of mutter, I think we got one. And we push up to him, and of course he's gone. And we tried, and I guess what really screwed me up there is he looked no different than me and you right now.
Right.
Just there was a little bit of yeah, it was, he looked no different. The only difference between me and you right now is he had a little black stuff on his face.
Right.
And we kind of had to almost peel him off the wall. Because, the fire, the living room,
it started to melt him to it.
Yeah. And we tried going over the radio 3 or 4 different times, and because of our air packs, they couldn't hear us very well. And he just turns and looks at me and he says, "Go tell the guy at the door, we got one. We need more guys." And because we were primary search, if we find a victim, we come out with the victim. We don't go back in. Somebody, another team goes in and does a secondary.
Right. You that's your victim. You own them.
Yeah. And we pulled him to the bedroom we pushed in. EMS, came and made sure there was no signs of life. And once we come out, command had walked around the back, and he was actually, when I first started being a firefighter, he was my captain, and now he's assistant chief. Love him to death. He's one of the best firefighters I know. And he told me and the other guy, "Y'all go to the front of the house, grab a line, just start spraying into the front of the house." Because just on the other side of the wall from where we were, it was still raging fire. And I think another team went in while I was on the front of the house, and I don't know how long I was on the front of the house, but I ended up, command had called. He said he wanted, because we kept getting reports that one of their sons was home, and he swears up and down that both of them were together, because it was a husband and a wife. And he said, "I swear they were together." And I'm kind of almost jumping up and down, screaming, "No, they wasn't," because I looked in that whole, to this day, I still visualize that room.
Right. And you're going, there's no way anybody else was in there.
Yeah. And
right.
He was like, "Well, we need to go check again just to make sure." And so 4 of us packed back up, and we went through the front of the house this time because, it was easier to get to, I guess. And the fire was pretty much knocked out, except for what was still burning above our heads that we really couldn't get to. And we push in we get inside the house, and there's holes in the floor from the fire in the front of this house. So we're having to kind of tippy toe through or over these holes, checking the floor as we're going, just to make sure we don't end up being part of the problem too.
Right.
And we get in the room where we found him, and me and the guy that was in the primary search were telling the other two guys that were with us now where we found him, and we're looking, and I'm standing in the doorway, and all of a sudden we get steamed. And it's not a pleasant experience when you get steamed.
No, I can only imagine it's not. Yeah.
One guy had somehow or another he like the back of his neck and his ears were burning really bad, so he just turned and looked at us and he's like, let's just go. And so I let both of them go, and I was going to wait on the last guy to go because I'm trying to hold accountability, make sure all my guys are getting out. And the last guy just kind of motions with his arm just to go. And I get to the front porch area, and I turn to look at him. And when I turned to look at him, the whole second floor just collapsed where we were just at.
Right.
The whole second story of that house fell right where we were just standing.
And you were just standing there, and you're like, wait a minute, that was literally me.
If we would have been there another like 10, 15 seconds, there had been 4 firefighter deaths that day. No doubt. Wow. And I mean, that was one of those moments where I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Christian, and I believe in God and everything, and it was one of those moments I took my air pack jacket off and I got a Gatorade, and I just kind of looked up to the sky and was like, I understand, I'm not done. I got you. My time ain't done yet. And
right.
Well, I don't know, it was like 10, 15 minutes later, command calls all of us, calls the whole scene, all personnel to the backyard. And he was like, unfortunately there is 2 victims. We found one. We can't find the other. At this time, we're going to break off into teams and we're going to actively search. And, he went through the whole spiel of what to do. If you find something that you think could be her, whatever.
Right.
And we go, for some reason, they put me right where we found him, right where that whole second story had collapsed, and all the stuff that was on the second story had fell down right where we were. Mm-hmm. And we start searching through it, and looking at it now, I mean, it's kind of funny. A wig had fell, and you should have heard, if y'all could have been a fly on the wall when you heard all of us say, "Oh shit," because the way that the wig fell, honest to God, looked like, I mean, the only thing we could see was her? Yeah, the only thing we could see was just like bits of blonde hair sticking through rubble.
Oh,
and
geez.
We all about had heart attacks.
That'll freak you
out. We ultimately ended up finding the second victim of what we believe was the staircase to go upstairs. In my head, it still doesn't make sense. If they were last seen together, there's no way that she went through that fire room to get to the stairs. And unless I absolutely missed something, there was no connector from the room we found him to where we found her. And I go back to, once again, I've seen some really bad stuff. I've been a part of some really bad calls. I've seen death. And a buddy of mine ended up telling me this a couple of days later. Because he come up to me and he was like, "Hey, do you remember freaking out on me?" I said, "What do you mean?" Because I remember a whole lot of detail up until we found him. And then after him, it was just a blur.
Right.
And he said that, my department uses our SCBAs that we use is MSAs.
Mm-hmm.
And we're the only department in this area that, as far as I know, that use MSAs. And he was at the front of the house and he heard them start hollering for an MSA bottle. And he come around and I kind of met him like halfway, and he said he started to change my bottle. And he said, I just started freaking out on him. saying, "Get this off of me. I'm effing done. Get this off of me. Get this off of me." And he said, once I got the air pack off, I was fine. But it was like something in me had just snapped in that moment, and I was just done. And I don't remember doing that at all.
But did anybody else see it besides him?
I'm pretty sure there was people. He said there was people like all around us, but nobody really said anything. And like I know I kind of jumped this part, but when we pulled him out, I was pissed. I was mad. And it wasn't mad I wasn't mad as in just mad at the world. I was mad at myself because I didn't feel like I did my job.
Because you didn't get him?
Yeah. Because that was my first grab. That was my first going in a fire knowing that there's somebody in there.
Right.
And I didn't feel like I did my job. And that had me torn up for a while. Because I'm not a perfectionist, but I want to be the best. And I do everything I can to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And it had me tore up. Like I come out and like I was just so ready to throw. I ripped my helmet off, started ripping my gloves off, and there was nobody. Like the family was all at the front of the house because the law enforcement was there and they were keeping them back and everything. That way we could do our jobs.
Sure.
And I was cussing myself, and like I was kind of almost having a meltdown on myself because I didn't feel like I did my job. And the guy that was actually sitting at the door that was like trying to keep in contact with me while I was inside, he had he pulled me to the side and he was like, "Look, man, I don't know you, but you did your job. You did it by the book. You need to be proud of that. Like you did everything you were supposed to."
Right.
And I tell this not very lightly. My chief, he's been a firefighter I know he's gotten a 25-year badge at my department, volunteer wise. He's getting ready to retire through the city. He was a firefighter before they had air packs, if that tells you anything.
Right, sure.
Wow.
So you can imagine how
old school
this guy is. And I've been a firefighter for my chief for like 4 or 5 years now. That man has never looked at me and told me he loved me or that he's proud of me. And that day, he said he got multiple calls telling them that they didn't know who that I'll just say my department, that Underwood firefighter was. But he needed to be proud of me because I did my job. I did it by the books. There was nothing more I could have done. And I think it meant more to me that day that he told me he loved me and he's proud of me and that I did a good job.
Right.
That because we had a whole like outcome debriefing, and because at first it was just 2 of guys from my department that had showed up, and once the word got around that it was a fatality, there's multiple fatalities and stuff like that, my captain ended up coming, and because he didn't have his gear with him, it was at the station, and he ended up coming just to like take over on the tanker. And as soon as he found out that it was me that was part of the team that found the guy, he started making phone calls saying, "Hey, we need to get with him," because he's like he
knew you were going to take it to heart.
Yeah, because I don't second guess myself, but I will worry the piss out of you trying to figure out what I could have done better, even on like a simple medical or a wreck or something. What could I have done better to make myself better?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he found that out, he started making phone calls saying, "Hey, we all need to get together because you know how he is." And it was extremely hard for a while, and it took me 2.5 months to get back in my gear.
Now, what were, aside from, like, you're saying that you felt like you had not done your job, what were the things that you, aside from that debrief, what were the things that you did that you felt helped you realize? Because like when you're talking about, we all know this, you're talking about you sat there and you felt like you stared at this body for what seemed like forever, and you were stunned and you were frozen in time and all this other stuff. But we know from experience, right, that's not necessarily the case, because you weren't in there for that long, right?
Yeah.
Like you had to.
It could have been a few seconds.
Get out, right? It could have been literally just a few seconds.
It's called tunnel vision.
Yeah, exactly. And your brain is processing information so fast because of the adrenaline and because of the critical incident you're experiencing that time seems to slow down. It's weird. Your thinking speeds up, but time slows down, right? And so you have this sense, and I experienced it. Chuck has experienced it. Like you have this sense that you're yelling at yourself, do something, move, get going. What's wrong with you? Blah, 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 blah. And it feels like it's taking forever. And then you get your ass in gear and you do the thing. And then afterwards, even though people tell you, no, dude, it was seconds. You're like, no, it was like, it felt like it was forever. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So we know that happens, right? We know, even though we understand the mechanism that causes that, it's still difficult to process. So what are the things that you did besides the debrief to help you kind of understand and recognize that, no, you weren't just standing there doing nothing. You weren't derelict in your duty. You were doing your job, and those things are just things that play out in your head.
I talked about it a lot. I talked to my chief because, he has seen a lot of that, and he told me some stories. And the way that he put it is, he said, son, if the only way that anything could have been different is if our fire department was across the street from that house, and we were notified of the fire as soon as it happened. Right. He said, there's nothing in this world you could have done different. And I don't know, I talked about it a lot, and I thought about it because in my day job, I spend a lot of time by myself. And the only thing I really can do is think. And like that next day, I went to work and I was just all over the place. I couldn't get my mind right. And I went to my bosses and I was like, look, I need a day. I need a couple hours just to get my head right. And I'll be back better than ever. I need some time. And unfortunately, because we were so busy, I didn't get that time. Right. And I just kind of had to keep working through it and keep working overtime.
Keep on keeping on.
And I got better about it for a while because I had talked so much about it. And then that's when I reached out to y'all, and I want to say I followed y'all's guidance, but at the same time, I ended up, when we had my EMT class party, first time I had drank in a long time, and I got really messed up, and everything kind of just come back and hit me.
Build out.
Yeah, and I turned a really good night into a really crappy night. But once I got everything off my shoulders, I felt better. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm still upset about it, and it's still going to always be a tearjerker because that's just who I am. I mean, I care about everybody, and
yeah, that's not going to leave you.
And I feel a lot better about it. And I mean, like, two of my good friends, like my best friend, he's in the Army. He gave me a challenge coin, and another friend gave me a challenge coin just because they said what I did, what I did and how I did it. That was bravery. That was being a firefighter at its fullest.
Right.
And like those challenge coins, I don't go anywhere without them now. And I'm trying to find somebody that can turn them into vinyl. That way I can put them on my helmet.
Sure.
And I mean, well, and then what really had me screwed up is that next night. So Monday night, we got paged to a structure fire again. And it turned out to be a hoax, but the original text like the original call that come out said that there was a little child entrapped. And my wife said I rose up like a zombie, and I was shaking to the point I couldn't even put my clothes on.
Right.
Because I mean it I was that screwed up from it.
Well, I mean, but this thing, you know what that is, right? You've listened to this show enough to understand when you start to experience post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, those invasive thoughts, the things that you can't control, the moments of like, I'm starting to have an emotional reaction to something that I can't control because it reminds me of something else that I recently went through.
Yeah. I think the best thing to do is to get back out there and get back on the horse, the metaphorical, get back up on the bike or the horse or whatever, because it makes it easier to get through those things, to know that you can get through them. Because I had something similar happen to me after my shooting. I had taken 2 weeks off and then went back to the field. Actually, even go back to the field, they made me stay another week and a half inside of the station. So I was almost a month without being in the field. My first day back in the field, foot pursuit, and then holding some chick at gunpoint and her reaching towards her waistband. And I'm like, I'm about to shoot this chick in the back. Like it's going to happen. If she pulls out a gun, she's getting probably half of my magazine dumped into her back, my heart was racing for probably the next 2 hours. And I told my partner, I was like, hey man, we got to go to the station. We got to go code 6 to the station. And I'm not going to leave until I'm done shaking. I was shaking so hard. I could barely eat, and I was trying to eat because I knew I needed food. It's been long. I hadn't eaten yet. I was like, we need to eat dinner. It's like 10 o'clock at night. Like it was rough. It was really, really rough. And, after that incident, I was able to get back in the field, start doing my job, and things got a lot easier. And I got to tell you, your mind will play tricks on you in so many different ways. In that way. And then in things that you thought you saw and you didn't see, or things that didn't happen, but you for a fact, you're like, I know I saw that. And it can go the opposite way. You're like, I didn't see anybody there. And then all of a sudden I come back and then someone's there. Holy shit. Your brain will play tricks on you. And it's a lot of the times it's tunnel vision, or it's an emotional stress response. It's not tunnel vision, but it's an emotional stress response. And your brain just doesn't know how to process what it's seeing right at that time. And it's not that you didn't see it. It's just, it's having a hard time process. And that's just part of the body, the human brain and the body work in crazy, mysterious ways. So the best thing to do is just get back out there and get back on that horse. And I'm sure you have, and you've been back in it, and you're probably, it's a lot easier now.
Oh yeah. About a month ago, we had a house fire, and it was in our jurisdiction, and I was actually 2 minutes from the station when the call dropped. So I was the first one to the truck. We were really and truly, we were the third personnel on scene, first actual fire truck on scene. And we went, me and another one of the same guy that said I freaked out on him. He pushed in with me, and he's on the nozzle, and I'm right behind him. And he said, like, we got steamed again. And he said, as soon as I felt it, and I heard him say it burns, I grabbed him by the back of his jacket and started pulling him out, saying, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. Because in my mind at that moment, I instantly went back to that fire and was like, it's time to go. We're not taking any chances. Right. Even though there was a chance that roof could have come in on us. Deep down, I knew it wasn't, but it was just like an instant reflex.
Get that close again.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got a wife, I've got a 17-month-old at the house, and I'm not, the way I was told is you do no good if you're laying there dead.
Yeah. Right. And that's a normal response. It happens with the cops all the time, especially in shootings. That's why more cops after their first shooting get involved in more, is because they don't wait that extra. They don't give that suspect an opportunity, the time to get up on target. If they have a gun, the moment they start to raise it, they get shot. And where it'd have been if someone's first shooting, they might wait until the suspect actually shoots rounds. And I've seen that shit firsthand. And where, officers who were able to shoot didn't shoot. And, it's kind of a scary thing. And then once you're involved in that again, it's a completely different outcome where the officers are like, I'm not giving it that.
I'd shoot somebody's ass
chance.
for it.
Like,
I'd shoot after I'd been in my shooting. I saw somebody that did something that I was like, dude, you're going to get like, I'm looking at it going, you should never let it get that close. I cannot believe you let like that happen. And I shoot it, and it can paint a target on your back sometimes because people who haven't been there are like, wow, that guy's fucking crazy. What's wrong with him? But they don't understand. Right. They don't understand. So, well, Austin, I'm glad you're doing okay.
Yeah. Austin. And what you did was the right response. You grab your partner, get him the hell out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, though, it took me a long time. And the only reason that I actually got back into my gear when I did is my profile picture right there. That was at a training event, and that was the first time I had put my gear back on since that fire.
Well, and good for you, especially if this is something you want to do professionally. This ain't gonna be, this may have been your first time, but it ain't gonna be your last time.
That's exactly what I was told too. It ain't easy, but you got to keep going.
Yeah, you got to rip the Band-Aid off at some point. And you had your Band-Aid ripped off pretty hard. So
yeah.
Well, I know we always give our guests a chance to dedicate their episode to somebody, but my understanding is that Chuck has her dedication this week. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yes, I do. So this goes out to police officer Sierra Burton. Sierra Burton succumbed to a gunshot wound sustained while conducting a traffic stop on August 10th, 2022. Other officers had requested her assistance to stop a moped being driven by a narcotic suspect in the 200 block of North 12th Street. Officer Burton had deployed her canine partner, Brev, who indicated on the presence of narcotics on the moped. As officers began to search the vehicle, the man pulled out a concealed handgun and opened fire, striking Officer Burton in the head. The man was shot and wounded by other officers before he fled on foot. He was taken into custody following a brief foot pursuit. Officer Burton was flown to Miami Valley Hospital, where she remained on life support until September 1st. She was taken to a hospice facility on September 3rd and succumbed to her wounds on September 18th, 2022. Officer Burton had served with the Richmond Police Department for 4 years. She is survived by her fiance, mother, and stepmother. Officer Burton was shot 9 days before her scheduled wedding date to her fiance. She was 28 years old. She had a 4-year tour, and she was taken out by a senseless narcotic suspect for dope.
Well, rest easy, sister. We got it from here. And there have been too many. I posted them. I posted one. I've kind of taken a step back from posting a lot of these on our social media because it's just our social media will be filled with nothing but officer, firefighter, veteran, suicide, firefighter, killed in line of duty, police, especially police officers. It's open season right now. So
this reminds me of
what?
Back in 2015, when it was open season on cops.
Yeah.
Back when Obama was in office, and there were officers being followed home, being taken out in their house, ambushed inside their own residence, outside of their homes, getting into their vehicles. Yeah. This reminds me a lot of that time and how like sketchy it was to be a cop, and how it's just getting worse. And it sucks. Something needs to change.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Austin, thanks for coming back on and sharing that. It sounds like shortly after your first appearance on our show.
Yeah, it wasn't very long after. We had over in my area, we had a massive black cloud for a long time, and luckily it's been lifted.
Well, give your family our best, and we're glad you're there for them, and we're glad you weren't in the house when it collapsed, but we're also more glad that your mental health survived, not just your physical health, because let's face it, right. you could have been lost in the fire, right? You could have been in there when it collapsed and have been lost physically, but almost as bad, if not worse in some cases, is when you make it out having undergone something like that and you can't get through it. And although your family still has you physically, they lose you emotionally and spiritually and mentally. So we're glad you're doing all right.
Yeah, that's what my wife says. She's so scared of the day that we actually have to run one with a kid because she knows I won't be able to handle that.
Well, I think if let's put it this way, just rely on your family, rely on your firefighter friends and family, rely on your wife and parents' family, rely on your faith, and rely on your training. And it's gonna suck. All those they're gonna suck. I mean, it's just dealing with kids is never easy. Dealing with death is never easy. Dealing with and for firefighters even more so, because a lot of the people you come in contact with. For cops, sometimes we're lucky because so many of them are shitheads.
Right.
There's a degree of disconnect that we could say, well, he was a shithead. He kind of got what was coming to him for doing something stupid. Right. But
innocence being lost
deal with
is
a lot of innocent
difficult.
victims. Yeah, innocence is very difficult. So.
Yeah, and just know that everybody has a limit. Yep. Everyone's cup, it doesn't fill at the same rate. Nope. And then once it gets to the top and it's full, you have to find a way to bring that cup back down to reasonable levels so it doesn't overflow. Once it starts to overflow, you have to be able to recognize it. But everybody is different and everybody has a different cup size, and everybody is just has to learn. Everyone has a different way of dealing with it, but knowing when it happens is very important, and how to get that cup from overfilling and to bring it back down.
The cup has to be emptied. Otherwise you're just going to take it home and it's going to spill all over your family.
Yes. My wife said that she was, as shitty as it sounds, she doesn't mean it bad, but she was like, I'm kind of glad it happened because you needed a break. You needed, because I did take a pretty major step back for a while because I was just trying to get my head back on right.
And that's when you reassess and decide, do you want to step back into it? And if you do, then you do, and you go with your eyes open, and now you understand you've been through a tough incident. You know what it takes to get through it again, and you will be that much more prepared next time. Mm-hmm. So, well, thank you, Austin. And Chuck, do you have something to take us out? I know.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening today. If you like today's podcast, please follow us on our Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. If you already follow us, share our posts and our info. You can also go to the link in our bio on Instagram and Facebook to reach all of our socials, our media, and our website. Our podcast is on all major podcast streaming platforms, as well as on YouTube. If you want to support us, please go to our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com and grab some gear. We have the shirts, just finalizing the logo on the back, and they should the tank tops, and they'll be at a good price too, because we know it's getting a little bit chillier, but they're going to be pretty cool, and they're almost done. So, and then they're going to be on the way. So.
And if you guys like them, we'll just turn them into shirts.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that'll be really quick too, because everything's all ironed out. And if you want to be featured on our show, or think you have a story or want to share your story, please go to booking.warstories@gmail.com. Again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com, and send me your story and I can get you booked. We are looking for law enforcement, corrections officers, dispatchers, firefighters, medics, and veterans. If you have a friend who you think would be a great fit, then let them know about us and give them our booking email. Again, thank you for the support. Stay safe.
Yep. And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on.